Week 7, fantasy football. This would put us exactly halfway through the regular season of fantasy football. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's
time flying.
Crazy that we're already there.
Time flying when you hate everything.
This shit sucks.
That's the old adage, right?
Yeah.
It's the woke. Today, we are talking about our top 40 wide receiver rankings for Week 7, half PPR. If at any point you just want to go grab our rankings, you could do so by becoming a Big Dog member at BDGE.co. The cheapest way to get it is by downloading Underdog Fantasy, the app, depositing $10 or more using code BDGE. You'll get a free square for Bo Nix tomorrow night on Thursday Night Football. All he has to do is hit one passing yard, and you will win that square on the app. That'll also get you the free Big Dog membership for the entire rest of the season. So our weekly rankings, our waiver wire rankings, our private live stream, etc.
Bo Nix might need that free square.
He might. There's been a lot of I promoted that in the content yesterday, and a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm going to take that free square and bet the under with it. I was like,
it might not be free.
Don't know if I blame you for that one.
People really hate Bo.
Let's get into the top 12 real quick. There are a couple names I do want to highlight. We got Jefferson at 1, A.J. Brown at 2, Amon-Ra St. Brown at 3, Jamar Chase at 4, Chris Godwin at 5, Malik Neighbors expected to be back from concussion at 6, but obviously keep an eye on that because he was also expected to be back last week, but we didn't get that. DK Metcalf at 7, Drake London at 8, and then the bottom 3 or 4, we got Terry McLaurin at 9, Cooper Kupp at 10, Jaden Reed at 11, and Deontay Johnson at 12. So the guy I want to highlight here is Cooper Kupp because Kupp's obviously been out with a high ankle sprain for a long time, and you guys, I think, are collectively just way more optimistic about him this week than I am in general. This might be coming from a place of like I have him and I just like don't trust him whatsoever now because I need him back. He looked great obviously prior to the injury, but that was a lot of the reason that people faded him in the beginning. Like he's old, he's got these lower body injuries, these ankle injuries, so it's like it's kind of a give and take there. Now reports said that they were aiming for a Week 7 return. They said that there was a workout that they had some optimism from yesterday or Monday, whatever it was. I am still a little weary about playing a dude like Cooper Kupp this week, or at least expecting a lot. When I say that, like I see Cooper Kupp at 13-8, whatever the consensus 10. There's a lot of dudes that if I have these guys on my team, like if I have a Mike Evans, I'm playing him over him. If I have some players like that, I don't know that I even think about the two yet because Kupp feels risky right now coming off the ankle injury. I don't know if he's going to play a full slate of snaps. Andrew, you're all the way up at 8, so you feel confident that like if he's playing, he's going to be back to like Kupp form?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really just came down to the point of like if he's in the lineup for us in fantasy, like I can't imagine really starting many of these other guys over him just based off of the body of work that we've seen with him and Stafford. I mean, when it comes down to it, he may not have the explosiveness right away. He might not have the after-the-catch ability, but he's going to see 15 targets or 20 targets. You know what I mean? Like, that's the way he's
That's where
used.
I think I would disagree because if you watched the beginning of the year with that game that he had like 20 targets, most of those were like him in motion running like a quick whip route, to get him the ball right away and make yards after the catch. I kind of feel like they're not going to put that pressure on him right away. Like those easy 6, 7, 8 yard, like in motion behind the line of scrimmage catches. I don't know that he gets most of those right now. So
fair enough.
I'm kind of thinking one line ahead. If he goes like 6 for 70, wouldn't really surprise me. And to be fair, in your idiot league mates, I'm going to be starting him over like Cooper Kupp. George Pickens if he's active. So like, of course, I'm going to make that play. But in general, I would just say I'm a little more pessimistic on him even playing this week, to be honest with you. But would be overly excited to play him next week is really all I'm saying.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's
Fuck
fair.
that motherfucker.
I just think, look, if he's in the lineup, like I can't imagine benching him for many other options right now.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I have him. You mentioned Mike Evans. I have him actually one spot directly below him. I felt like my ranking's reflective of if he's good to go. Now, obviously, that could change midweek based on what we get. Mm-hmm. If he's playing, I feel like 13, and I'm someone that was a little lower on him in season. It feels like now I'm maybe higher than some, but there's no one else in that offense without Puka there too. To Andrew's point, I agree. I think they're going to have to use him different ways, but I don't know. Even if it's in different ways, if Matthew Stafford has eyes for anyone else.
Yeah.
It's like they've probably been going to breakfast this whole time still.
Yeah, maybe. I think Whittington is slowly crept together into a nice role. Like I think when Kupp's back, Whittington will play the Puka role now, and they have like solidified 1 and 2. And we didn't really get to see what those two roles looked like when they were on the field together, because Puka obviously was hurt like right away.
Yeah, it's like 2 quarters.
Yeah. Regardless, though, I think, Kupp's hopefully coming back this week, and it was worth noting.
Let's rapid fire a couple here real quick. I think would be worthwhile. Deontay or Cooper Kupp?
Cooper.
Who's Deontay playing?
Washington.
I'm playing Deontay.
Yeah, that ranking part was tough for me. How about Zay Flowers
Cooper.
off the big week? They
Man,
played
that
Tampa.
I would feel horrible if I had to sit Zay Flowers in a league. Yeah, I think man, I'm gonna need to see. I'll play Zay with the caveat that if we get like full practices out of Kupp, if like Thursday, Friday come around, he's full practice, no injury designation, I'll go Kupp there. Otherwise, I don't know. I kind of feel like I need to see full strength Kupp before I sit like a caliber of Zay Flowers type player.
You're just worried we're going to get limited, and then a questionable tag going into the weekend?
Limited, and yeah, I think the re-injury risk for Kupp is like also really fucking high. Like if he gets out there and in like the third quarter, you're like, Kupp just limped off. Is anyone going to be surprised? Nah.
You shouldn't any game with him, honestly. But yeah, that's a good point.
So that makes me a little bit nervous there.
I just think that we start going there, you have it as Zay where it's close. I feel like once you start getting past the Evans guy you just mentioned, right, in that next tier here, it's with Kupp playing, if he's out there good to go, whether that really is him healthy or not, I feel like I have to. It's really a coin flip, and at that point, I'm going to lean Cooper Kupp just because of the lack of competition he really has in my eyes.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Let's keep going down there because you had Mike Evans 13, we got Diggs 14, Zay Flowers 15, Debo at 16, Garrett Wilson 17. Now we'll stop here because obviously we had the huge trade yesterday where Davante Adams is going over to New York. And we could just kind of take a minute to recap and talk about that trade in its totality. Now, the way I looked at things is like from a Raiders standpoint, it's kind of been what it's been the last couple weeks now, right? Because they haven't played with him. Brock Bowers obviously shoots up the rankings and is like a clear top 2 at worst tight end in full PPR going forward. He'll get a huge portion of those targets. The Jet side gets a little bit trickier. Now, we saw the offense look really good on Monday Night Football. They were, I tweeted out some stats where weeks 1 through 5, their play action rate was around 19 or 20%. In week 6, that game, it was upwards of like 33, 34%, which is huge. And then their shift motion was up at like 60% Monday night compared to around like 35 or 40% in prior weeks. And I'm like, that opens so many things up and that makes the offense just click. And you just watch the game. You're like, they haven't looked like this at any point this year. Obviously, Davante and Rodgers have this unbelievable fucking chemistry that throws, kind of a wrench into Garrett Wilson's target totals.
Yes.
Now, I'm not sure where I land. Like, it doesn't, I'm not out on Garrett Wilson by any means. I think, like, where you guys have him is probably around where I'm settling in. Like, rest of the season, he's probably a top 15 guy for me still. I think both of them are. I think Adams and Garrett Wilson are. I think what's tricky for Garrett Wilson, he's been getting so many targets that are those like quick slant breakoff routes where you got to imagine at least half of those start to go to Davante, if not him becoming that guy. And maybe Garrett Wilson was more into the slot, which is what we saw on Monday night as well. So, like, do either of you guys have a strong take on how this breaks out?
I mean, I think, first of all, for the Jets, this is going to be every excuse is no longer out there for Rodgers with the coaching's change real quick and now this. I feel like it could really unlock the entire offense. Like, I have a really strong feeling. Now, granted, I had a strong feeling on Garrett Wilson before the season, so sometimes my feelings are quite wrong. I just have a really strong feeling that we could see a massive shift, similarly to what we saw, like, out of the week from coaching change and the way that they're running the offense to Garrett Wilson. If you saw in that touchdown, that in particular, that one sticks out to me where that play was like he was the third read, but the only read.
Yeah.
Like, meaning that they had to, like, creatively get him the ball because he's the only option there. I feel like now defenses cannot key on Garrett Wilson. I think his target volume is certainly going to come down, but I think the amount of coverage he has and the efficiency could go wildly up to make up for it in a better way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way that Garrett Wilson has been valuable this year has been the volume. And I think that's obviously going to be a big thing that's not going to be there as much anymore. With the way I'm looking at this wide receiver room really moving forward is almost like the great value or the Walmart version of the Eagles wide receiver room where you had A.J. Brown. That will probably be kind of more like Davante Adams in that role, just obviously not the same type of upside, not the youth that he has at his position. But I also think that, Garrett Wilson kind of falls into that Devonta Smith, a very creative route runner, a guy who's very good, a possession receiver that can also, have the big games playing opposite with some lighter coverage coming his way. So I think the way I would view both of these guys rest of the season is Adams is somewhere probably between like wide receiver 7 and wide receiver 12. Like, I think he's probably a low-end wide receiver 1, and I think Garrett Wilson is in that wide receiver 2 territory now.
Yeah, that's probably where I'd be at, like 8 to 12 for Adams and then 12 to 17 for Garrett Wilson as well. I think Adams will end up being like he'll take some of those slant routes, but I also think he'll be the guy that gets the downfield shots, where it feels like they haven't had that in this offense really at all.
This probably opens things up for Brees a little bit more too.
Of course, yeah.
Massively. I think let's go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, like, Adams, when they played in Green Bay together, Adams led the league a few times in receptions of like 40-plus. You don't think of him as like a speedster down the field, but he's so good down the field because of his like his body control and his like hands and stuff like that. So I feel like it's that will unlock a piece of this offense. I think there's still concerns with just overall pass volume in the offense and like the pace of this offense. And there are going to be games where like maybe one of these receivers really only gets 5 targets, and that could be a huge problem. But in games when the offense is clicking, they have good matchups. I think they could both easily be top 15, top 12, like almost maybe like Tampa Bay-ish.
That's literally what I was going to go, was the Tampa Bay one, where people were more sure of Evans because he was coming off a good year and not as much on Godwin. I think now obviously that's changed a lot, but with the Jets, I agree with there's going to be some weeks of certainly inconsistency, but I feel like you could pencil in majority of the weeks these guys might end up both getting very close, if not north of 10 targets at the same time. We could be looking at a super condensed offense. Yeah. Hopefully to Lazard's expense for fantasy owners.
Yeah, it literally just should be Wilson, Adams, Brees. Wilson, Adams, Brees over and over and over again. So you guys have Garrett Wilson at 17 here. We didn't put Davante Adams in the rankings because we didn't know if he was gonna play this week.
Sounds like he will.
I'm under the assumption that he is. He was with Aaron Rodgers immediately. The hamstring was always felt like it was fake. There's no reason that he couldn't go in there and just play fucking whatever ball with Aaron Rodgers. So I think I think he gets a full slate of snaps. It
sounds like he flew in the Monday night game. Like when they were playing their game, he was flying.
Probably in the press box, honestly.
I wouldn't be surprised if we had a Falcon situation, just Kirk Cousins doesn't spill the beans, where this was in the works and we knew it was coming, but it didn't finalize till then.
Yeah.
So if he plays, though, I will say I would have Adams somewhere around probably that Mike Evans, Deontay Johnson range, top 12 guy.
Oh, you're saying if Adams wasn't playing?
If Adams plays.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
You're saying if Adams plays, he would put Adams up there.
Yeah, we don't have him ranked in our rankings.
I'm sorry,
right
you said Adams. I missed that part. Got it. Okay, yeah. I have Adams right now like about as uncertain as could be. If he's going to play this week, I'm definitely putting him in the top 15, probably right around where I have Wilson. I think right now, just looking at it, I've already talked
back-to-back-ish. Like
I actually just talking about it right now because I've been thinking about it more. It's very fresh news when I made my rankings. I think I'm already moving Garrett Wilson up a few spots, not a ton, but I think I'll probably have them both if they're playing like in the 15 range.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right thought process. I'm a little bit nervous just about the game. This one in particular at Pittsburgh is like horrible environment. I don't know what the over-under is, but I can't imagine it's much higher than like 41 points.
That was
it's going to be very slow, run heavy.
Matchup is part of why I have Garrett Wilson at 20, which just feels crazy to put him there. But that matchup doesn't just bode well for pace, but also we don't know if Russ is playing or Fields is going to play. There's a lot of like weirdness in that game.
Russ.
I feel like there's a lot of fake news on that Peloton report, but at the same time, I'm just it's an interesting one.
Did you hear what Tomlin said about Davante Adams?
Not about Adams, no.
He said, I had a game plan for him last week because they played the Raiders. And he's like, now I got a game plan for him again. So, it is what it is.
Okay, the over-under in this game is 38.
Yikes.
Like, I'll be like, as a guy who has Aaron Rodgers in your Idiot League mates, I'm psyched about that, right? Like, I feel like his floor now just got elevated to like 14, 15 fantasy points a week. But this week in particular, I am probably sitting him, even if I'm expecting a full go from Davante Adams.
Yeah, I mean, you have like
A-Rich
Sam Darnold and stuff. Yeah, so you should be fine.
Let's keep moving down, though. We got T. Higgins at 19, BTJ at 20, Tyreek Hill at 21, Brandon Ayuk at 22, Jordan Addison 23, and Jameson Williams at 24. I guess we should cover the other trade that happened as well. We got Amari Cooper going to Buffalo.
That's nice.
So I want to give you guys some inside info here because, we don't like clip this and make it go viral, but I was talking to Casey yesterday because Casey and Jack, obviously, we split the office with Snapback Sports. Jack has a podcast with Marlon Humphrey, the cornerback on the Baltimore Ravens, and they don't typically get into like detail about game planning and stuff on the show because Baltimore, their locker room is very hush-hush. They don't want drama. They don't want clips going viral about shit that's happening. But Casey was telling me yesterday that when Baltimore played Buffalo, he was like, we didn't watch any film on the Buffalo wide receiver. I was asking because they filmed yesterday, and I was like, what, did Marlon have any strong takes about the receivers getting traded or whatever? He's like, nah, huge get for the Jets, like great trade for them. He was like, the Cooper to Buffalo is huge for Buffalo because he was saying when they game planned for Buffalo, He's like, we didn't watch any film on the receivers because our coaches were like, their receivers are terrible. If you guys can't, like, he's like, there's no one in that room that's like a game changer. If you guys can't cover the receivers just raw, we got bigger problems. He was like, all we did was watch film on James Cook running the ball and James Cook catching the ball out of the backfield.
And then
So,
he
like,
didn't play.
and then they beat them by like 25 points, right? Like Baltimore beat the shit out of Buffalo. And I was like, man, people would kill to hear that type of stuff out there, like on Twitter in clips and stuff like that. It's kind of funny because that's the way that teams are looking at Buffalo. So that's probably the way that they're viewing themselves now. And they're like, we need a receiver. We need a real one. We need a guy to come in and like be someone that defenses need to game plan against. And Cooper, I think, is the cheapest way to get that into your locker room, whether it's like, because there's dudes like Davante who are ungettable unless you're trying to give up a lot of capital or something really resourceful or pay a lot of money. And then there's dudes like DeAndre Hopkins where it's like, you can go for them, but there's like a good chance that just doesn't help you really at all. And he like breaks down by the end of the season. Cooper's a perfect middle ground where he's not as talented as Davante, but you know that you're going to get like really solid production out of him regardless.
Yeah, I think, for him, obviously I was pretty high on him just in general this coming into the season. No bias at all in that.
At all.
But like if he was to get moved, I remember there was fake news later in the offseason around this Brandon Ayuk swap. And I'm like thinking at that point, there's probably a lot of scenarios if Cooper actually was to get traded where it's not going to be good for his fantasy value. He's not, because to your point, he's not someone that if he goes to a room where there's another very good receiver going to just dominate targets from him. Mm-hmm. I don't think I could make a better scenario for him than this Buffalo trade where he stays high, possibly target volume, but he doesn't look disgruntled. I mean, I'm not going to act like he's going to all of a sudden look spry again, but he might.
You can't.
He might.
You can't get any worse than like what's going on in Cleveland. So for him, he's like, fuck yeah, it has to be.
I mean, the quality of the target is going to go up significantly moving forward. And like they play fast. Buffalo plays fast. They're going to score a lot of points. He should have a lot of opportunity here. Honestly, I tried not to be super reactive to the news yesterday when I was talking with some of the people in the Discord, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's like a high-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1 the rest of the way.
Yeah, kind of like I had him before. You know?
I mean, he's been playing well this year.
Now he actually will be.
Now the volume might actually amount to something. He had like 1 week with volume, and it was because he got it in the end zone.
Yeah, I mean, like I can't imagine him not getting 7 to 8 targets plus every week in that offense because they don't have a dude there.
I've been trying to trade Tony since last night in our Idiot League Mates for Cooper.
You have?
Yeah.
That kind of sucks for Khalil Shakir. Now that I'm thinking about it a little bit.
But you know what? Maybe not too bad because
maybe
he
they
won't
pass
see
more
the
now.
number one wide receiver or the number one defensive corner anymore if he was even really seeing that. But
yeah, I mean, out of the slot, probably not too much. But I think this probably makes Buffalo want to pass the ball a little bit more. Like they've been really run heavy, and it was a good thing because it worked so well for them. But there were games you saw them really struggle. Like when they got behind, they couldn't get in comeback mode because it's like, all right, what are we doing? Throwing fucking lobs to Mac Hollins and shit. By the way, Mac Hollins on TikTok, you guys ever see this shit?
Yes, dude. The time management tips with Mac.
Time management. He just be like posting TikToks that get like 1,000 views about
how to clean your air dryer or
how to clean your
like air fryer or whatever. Like
how to keep your iPhone charger cords organized. It's really odd. Shout out to him. I like that.
He's a crazy dude. Yeah, like he says he doesn't wear shoes ever unless he's playing football. Yeah. Like it's only during football he wears shoes.
There's some things I didn't need, and that's kind of crazy. No shoes ever? Like what?
No, he wears barefoot any place he can. I remember there's a podcast that were interviewing him, and they were asking him different places that he would go barefoot, and basically every place he was barefoot, unless he was legally in airports they forced me to put shoes on.
No shoes, no service.
Yeah, so kind of wild.
If it's optional. Crazy. No shoes.
Regardless, that's who Josh Allen was relying on.
Yeah.
To that point, one thing I think on Cooper, I did want to touch on the negative side, just to kind of get your guys' take. With the change last year in season, if you look at Diggs, he was actually off to his best start, and then subsequently his absolute slowest, worst finish. Mm-hmm. Yeah. With the change in the offensive philosophy, do you think there's a range where maybe I'm too bullish on Cooper, we're too bullish on Cooper?
Yeah, that's a good point.
There's definitely a range of outcomes where that is.
There's a chance that the pass volume doesn't change at all. It's just the game looks a little bit better because now Allen has a guy that he can go to.
Right, and I do think for managers that have Cooper yesterday or I guess 2 days ago and they have him now today, you still feel better today. Even if it doesn't change in Buffalo, it's better than what it was in Cleveland.
At worst, you're going from a shaky wide receiver 3 to a
Low end.
Low
number
end 2. Yeah,
Yeah.
like at worst.
Yeah, I mean, it's this at worst. Even you're probably still looking at the same target volume in Buffalo, even if he's not getting like force fed the football.
Right.
You know.
Have we seen anything about Cooper playing this week? I would definitely be more hesitant on him than I would for
I have not
Davante.
seen anything about him playing, and I'm not projecting him to play this week.
Okay. Buffalo's also. Have you guys seen that point spread against
No.
Tennessee? It's like 9 points.
That's massive.
Huge for a Tennessee like good defense, and Buffalo not being able to get anything done through the air.
Anytime I like see lines that seem so off like that, I always feel a trap game. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
Something I don't know.
Yeah, agreed. But yeah, I would probably say I don't know that I trust Amari Cooper this week if he's going to play or not.
I was gonna ask, what is your lean on that? Do you feel confident one way or the other, or no?
I don't feel confident, but I would if I had to bet now, I would say he doesn't play this week.
That's kind of what I'm thinking too.
It's tough midweek. Go across, to a different team, get acclimated, learn the playbook, like go out there and run routes with a new quarterback. It's tough.
There's a chance that they have him active and like they're just like, hey, we're gonna put you in on like red zone packages where there's
Learn
only like
these
2
5
routes
plays.
that you. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like because when it's that limited, you could like tell him right before he runs onto the field, like, hey, you're running like a 3-yard hitch route or some shit like that.
Yeah.
So at the bottom of this tier, we have BTJ stays in Jacksonville. He should probably see a lot of Christian Gonzalez there. Any worries coming off of last week's game? Obviously, it could have been a much fucking bigger game. Everyone was dropping touchdown passes left and right. Maybe they're now settled because they've been in Jacksonville for a week. You guys are confidently rolling BTJ back out.
Saying been in London for a week.
Yeah, what did I say?
You said they've been in Jacksonville. They're
Okay.
in London.
They're kind of the same thing. Though, right?
Are they?
They play home games there every year.
Fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm not super worried about Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, obviously he's the Jaguar that I feel the most comfortable in, but again, it's just another tough matchup. It's another London game. Obviously, I think they should perform a little bit better. In fact, if I was going to, put money on a money line, I think Jacksonville wins this one. But I do think that the shadowing that should probably happen from Christian Gonzalez here is just another tough matchup where Thomas is going to have to come down with a touchdown. He's going to have a big play. And those things can happen for Thomas, but you also have weeks like last week where we said it was going to be a tough matchup with Jalen Johnson, and it didn't happen. So I'm just tempering the expectations. I'm viewing him as like a wide receiver 2 play, a low-end
I feel
wide
like he
receiver
did,
2.
no? Didn't he have a bad game?
Yeah, a horrible game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It was a tough match with Jalen Johnson, and it happened.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying you have the tough matchups like you had with Jalen Johnson, and those things happen. And this is another one with Christian Gonzalez.
Oh, you're
It's a tough
saying we were
matchup.
like, it doesn't matter because it's Jalen Johnson? Or did I just miss something?
I don't think you were following.
Okay. Don't worry about
I
that.
said it was a tough matchup for Jalen Johnson last week. He had a bad game. It's a tough matchup for Christian Gonzalez this week. Not saying he's going to have a bad game, but it's going to be a tough game.
I think the Patriots are a sneaky over team now too with Drake May, where I feel like almost most of the games could start becoming like shootouts.
I kind of like what I saw from May.
I mean, it's hard not to like what you saw from him for sure. I do think like with what I saw with him there, I think that was probably going to be a good game for him, and I'm curious to see if he has more inconsistency yet. But
Yeah.
I do think, at least for BTJ, last week I was like, all right, before we start anointing, he was dynasty rankings, he was wide receiver 8 on Keep Trade Cut. Like, I'm like, before we start anointing this dude, can we see him get a number 1 cover, please? Like, can we get a number 1 corner shadowing him? Like, before we decide he's him, he should have had a touchdown. But the other thing that is not just that, the target volume. Evan Ingram was back in a big way, 10 targets.
10 targets, yeah.
People
Goodbye,
kind of forgot
Christian
about him.
Kirk. Goodbye.
Yeah.
But I guess the question is more so with that, is Jacksonville a type of offense to sustain like any type of consistency if Evan Ingram eats into targets for everybody? I'm still high on 18 because I think that if they should be trying to get Brian Thomas the ball a lot more.
They're just like a bad version of Cincy right now, where we're waiting for that offense to click, but their pass D is so bad
Terrible.
that they just let up 30 a game, and they like have to go in shootout mode every week.
Yeah, it's really tough offensively for them to do anything because, the best way obviously to open up that passing game is to get it going on the ground. But when you're down, like you said, by 20 points going into half, like what can you do?
Put Dearness Johnson on the field for 60% of snaps.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Tank, we'll get to the running back video in a little bit. Yeah, speaking of that, we do the top 40 running back rankings after this video. It'll be up on the channel in a few hours, so make sure you're subscribed for that. We got Tyreek Hill back in the wide receiver 2 conversation. We've got another Snoop Huntley starting situation. We still don't know when Tua is going to be back at Indianapolis. That's a really good matchup, but I don't know that like matchups are really a thing for Miami at the moment. So you're going to start Tyreek over BTJ. You are going to start BTJ over Tyreek Hill. Confidence level on Tyreek Hill? Is there anything that we don't know?
I'm reluctantly starting Tyreek Hill over BTJ. I don't feel good about it for Tyreek Hill. I'm hoping that this is going to be the last week or one of the last weeks we have to see the Snoop Huntley, Tyreek Hill thing. You've been waiting on the cheetah to not be able to run anywhere. It's bad.
Yeah.
Look,
But I'm hoping this week is better.
I mean, out of the bye week, you've got to imagine something changes here. I don't know what that is, but something.
That's if you have a whole bye week, you have a whole week off. Is it not? Let's get back to just getting this guy the ball 10 in any way we can.
There's a lot of me that feels like it's going to be because Raheem and Jalen Wright ran so effectively last week whenever pre-bye that the game plan might be get Achane, Raheem, Jalen Wright 40 touches in this game.
Get them rolling.
Yeah, that's what kind of scares me a little bit.
It's a weak run defense too, so you can kind of run on them too. So
Good point.
Look, man, I have zero confidence in Tyreek Hill, and I hate to say it so bluntly, but 25 for me even feels like I'm being optimistic. And I look at what he's done ever since Tua has gotten out of that lineup. You know, the best finish that he has in half-point PPR in that time is a low-end wide receiver 3. Yeah. He's very, very even barely cracking the top 36. Yeah. And so having him at 25, I'm like being optimistic about a matchup and a fresh legs off of a bye week and all this other stuff. But the reality is, until Tua is back in this lineup, he's probably a guy that you're considering flexing or benching.
Yeah, tough spot for people that drafted him.
I mean, it's certainly a tough scene. I get the pessimism, and there's hard not to feel that way. I look at last year, other times when he wasn't playing with Tua, where he has actually finished well, and I hope coming out of the bye, I guess, that we can try to do some of those things again because the offense just looks – I don't know. It's hard to understate how bad this offense looks and how the lack of creativity or changing of the style of the offense when you don't have Tua. Like, you can't –
yeah.
Tua's not a high-end, like, elite play because he doesn't have the arm strength and all that. You could think what you want about him as a quarterback, but he fits the system well. Like, the quarterback plays horrible. The whole offense is bad.
You know what I'll say, though? Tua is probably sitting back there saying, that's why you paid me that money. That is why you paid me this money. Look at this right here.
The problem with it is, like, and we'll talk, like, we have a video coming out tomorrow where we are suggesting dudes to trade for or trade away based on, like, fantasy playoff schedules and things like that. And looking at Miami's stretch down the road of the last, like, 4 or 5 weeks of the season, Tua is great when, like, things are bumping, but like in December in cold weather against tough matchups, like Tua has almost like literally not shown up one time. Yeah. And then when it actually matters, so that scares me a little bit too when it comes to just Tua in this offense. And I don't know how long they could like keep all this up.
I have a buddy, a really close friend who's a Dolphins fan, and he was like, you know what? For the betterment of Tua's life, why doesn't he just retire right now? Like, just be done.
Give us our money back, retire.
He said, we'll tank next year, and let's try and get Arch Manning in 26. Like, that would be ideal.
Yeah, no, it's a tough spot for Miami. Let's keep moving down the rest of this tier. After Tyreek, we got Ayuk at 22, Addison 23, Jameson Williams at 24, and we move into tier 3, or the 25 through 36. We got JSN up there at 25, George Pickens at 26, Darnell Mooney at 27, Juju at 28. Let's stop at Juju there. George Pickens, I will just say for the record, as another owner, him against Sauce Gardner, have almost no confidence in that fucking matchup there.
I was pushing him down my ranks this morning, and honestly, like, I don't know. I think he's gonna have another free fall when I do my ranks again.
The only thing that scares me is like this is the point where everybody piles on, where everyone's like Pickens is done. That's when players pop.
And I will say to that point, it's again touching on a situation earlier. Like, I think actually the offense is going to be better off, and I would be surprised actually if they end up pivoting to starting Russell Wilson this week. If they do, though, I think is definitely going to be possibly a good thing for Pickens.
I agree. I'm hoping Russ starts for Pickens.
This ranking is baking in the fact that I think Russell Wilson is the starter.
Okay. Yeah, I think, that's optimistic. I also think with the Jets secondary, obviously Sauce is there, and this is the matchup where you could put Sauce against a team's number one. But right now I think they have DJ Reed got hurt last game. Chuck Clark, I think, just got put on the IR. I think Michael Carter, their other cornerback, is also banged. They might be down pretty heavily in the secondary.
They're a little banged up right now.
Yeah, so I think maybe that works in the favor. But yeah, like Pickens scares me a little bit. Darnell Mooney's played out of his mind. Juju Smith-Schuster. So we saw him before the bye blow up, 7 catches, 130 yards. Now, like, how much of that do you feel like is fool's gold versus like, all right? Because we saw him a couple years ago, and he went over 900 receiving yards. Now, he's not going to do that from week 7 through 17, but if he paces out from now, if like his game pace is of 900, 950, 1,000 yards, obviously that's super useful to fantasy. Like, So do we think he is, do we think last week's performance pre-bye was fool's gold?
Look, it's a risky start, and I think trusting Juju in itself makes you want to vomit. But I do think it's more so me buying into the role in which that they put him in, which was that slot wide receiver kind of trying to fill in the shoes of Rashee Rice. Yeah. And we've seen that role specifically gets fed targets at a little bit of a higher volume than pretty much anybody else in the offense. I do think with that being said, catching footballs from Pat Mahomes, being in that role, there is enough of a floor where I'm comfortable throwing him in there. Obviously, we know that there's a ceiling as well. We saw it with Rashee. We saw it a little bit the pre-bye week with Juju. I'm viewing him this week very much as a wide receiver 3/flex. If you only have the 2 starting wide receivers, you're playing him in the flex, and I'm going to see what we can get out of him this week. If it doesn't happen, I'm not going to be surprised, but if it happens again, I think this might legitimately be his role moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's hard to really have, for me, it feels like I have not seen juice out of Juju in forever. So I was very surprised by the game. I guess, though, the one thing I'm thinking about with KC, going back and actually watching some of the games through and thinking about what's going on with Kareem Hunt, there's a level of comfortability with, I think, the way they're pivoting things too. Just because Juju isn't the same player doesn't mean that they might not try to use him in the ways that are going to benefit him, which clearly was last week. I don't think, as far as the fool's gold, it feels like it is. That said, though, I would have told you there's almost a 0% range of outcomes where he has one game like that left in his career. So if he's to have a good season, he's in the spot to do so.
Yeah. I feel if I got him off the waivers, I'd feel really good about just randomly picking up that piece. But there's going to be weeks where his floor is really fucking low.
I think coming out of the bye is the thing that scares me, because have they, in that bye week, are they leaning more into getting Juju a role like he did last week, or are they trying to pivot into younger receivers?
You got to think that at some point they try to get Xavier Worthy more. He's their first round wide receiver. You have all your weapons get hurt. This is when you would force a player like that into a role. But again, it goes back to a lot of the sentiment that I guess I had preseason was Worthy's not really built to be a possession dude.
That's exactly what I was alluding to. Is it feels like a perfect time if they're going to start trying to lean on him.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It very much to me, it feels like Juju was a guy that I was kind of excited about getting on my teams last week, just fresh off of that performance and stashing him through the bye week. Because
now you're a little dampened on it.
No, I mean, I still am feeling good about it. I'm definitely comfortable throwing him into my lineup this week and living with the results.
Yeah,
all right, Dan.
Some of them squads for
what
sure.
What about
some of my squads? Yeah, we're banged the hell up,
dude. That's actually kind of crazy.
Yeah. What about a little Pop Douglas action? Because we saw Drake May make his first start. Statistically, threw up numbers, ones that you're not going to see from Jacoby Brissett, which is huge for a dude like Pop Douglas. He popped for, I think it was 6 catches, 90+ yards, and a touchdown. Now they get an incredible matchup against Jacksonville in London. In PPR leagues, even half PPR leagues, this is kind of the Pop that we were hoping to get preseason, where a lot of people were hyped on him. He was a very popular sleeper pick. I know, I'm playing against Sexy this week. He's really banged up, but he picked up Pop Douglas last week, and I'm fuck, that's the perfect fill-in for injured wide receivers in a full PPR league where I know Pop's giving you 5 for 60 at worst, maybe scores a touchdown. That's, I'll just say, yeah, Pop's a great start this week.
He very clearly, he's earned the nickname for me at this point now, and we can't keep him on the weekly version of our wide receiver deep cuts.
Yeah, not anymore.
Unfortunately,
he's
we
not
nailed it for 3 weeks in a row.
We said it was coming.
The people did say, how many weeks in a row are we going to get Pop Douglas and Michael Wilson?
That's the kind. I was looking at that in the comments dang, that's crazy.
But I will say, look, I added Demario Douglas in my home league last night. Our waivers run at midnight or whatever, so L take for that. But I do plan on throwing Douglas in this week for Chris Olave, who's probably not playing with the concussion. So I'm going to throw Douglas in for Olave, and I actually feel very comfortable with that.
For sure. I would feel great about that. I think Pop and Hunter Henry are big winners from that.
You know what actually kind of excites me a little bit is Drake May, when he was at UNC, the way that Josh Downs played football is actually very similar to the way that Demario Douglas plays football. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of that familiarity that I feel like I saw from May and Douglas in that type of role. I think he's going to be a very solid possession guy for the remainder of the year. I think if you pick him up off of waivers this week, you have an asset that you can rely on as a flex play until your championship week.
Yeah, he's a really quick twitch guy that I think is young quarterbacks in general want that safety blanket, but I think he has more than just that too, which is what I saw this week. And your idiot league mates, right? We had 2 pickups of Pop and of Polk, and I was like, I really want Pop right now.
Yeah,
and I want Polk for the long term, but we'll see what that ends up bringing.
You want Pop now long term too?
I I think I've always maybe just wanted Pop long term, and I just didn't feel
so
comfortable.
The matchup versus Jacksonville is just juicy too.
It's so good. And one other thing I would note is like Polk's snap counts for some reason just like dropped through the floor last week. So I had one of a Patriots beat reporter that I talk to sometimes. He reached out to me after, and he was like, just keep an eye on this. Jared Mayo said in the press conference afterwards, there's a really good chance that Pop becomes one of the starters in 2 wide receiver sets going forward, which to me would signal that like that second wide receiver spot, they love Kendrick Bourne. Kayshon Bouttie's making plays. I think that's just going to be a rotation of Boutte, Jalen Polk, Kendrick Bourne, and Pop might move up to like an 80% plus player, which is obviously huge for his value here.
Yeah, if he was a staple in 2 wide receiver sets, that puts him in different territory. That would be massive.
Because he only played like 67% of the snaps last week, and now like we saw what he just did on limited snaps. Good matchup, up the snap. Like I'm like talking myself into starting him over like Tyreek Hill at this fucking point.
Give me some Pop Douglas, baby.
Yeah, I'm moving him up my ranks right now.
Yeah, let's keep moving down to a guy that you just mentioned, the Josh Downs version of Pop Douglas in Josh Downs over there in Indianapolis. Now we are expecting, I think, Anthony Richardson to play this week. We have Shakir at 31, Christian Watson 32, Josh Downs at 33. Now he's been just incredible in that offense over the last few weeks as Joe Flacco has been playing under center. Now with Downs, Anthony Richardson, I've kind of been on the record. I just think that Josh Downs is going to be a staple of this offense regardless of who is under center. Yep. Pittman supposed to go on IR, not on IR. I don't know what's going on with him. I guess he's playing
IR to the end zone quickly.
That's
crazy.
Did you see there was a rumor that he wanted to go on IR?
His dad told him not to.
Because Anthony Richardson was coming back at quarterback. But when it was Joe Flacco, he said, I'll play one more game. And now this week he might go back on IR because he had a press conference where he said, like, it's still in the range of outcomes. It's just really how I feel each week.
That feels crazy for that rumor to slide out.
That would be insane.
And now they're saying that
didn't get re-injured and then went on IR.
If A-Rich comes in at quarterback this week and Pittman goes to IR.
It's like back-to-back announcents.
We know what's happening.
That's insane. There's no way that's true.
Yeah.
That cannot.
It's just a weird coincidence. I don't know.
Okay, so let's assume.
You didn't even rank Pittman?
I'm
or I guess you just don't have him out there.
I actually, with my thing with, this is a little bit, I need to change it because I'm right now with Downs 34. He to me is the biggest mover up and down based on quarterback. If it's Joe Flacco for sure, I might even put him up higher. To be honest with you, like
I think you have to.
A lot. Like but if it's a Rich, I know you saying he's a staple in the offense. I don't necessarily disagree. I just don't know if that role is really that good, even if it is a staple. Sure. That's why I'm like. To me, he probably is the biggest mover based on the quarterback at the helm of any player in my rankings.
Yeah.
Downs is over Pittman for me now, moving forward. Yeah. Like, I have Downs because I think his role is a little bit easier to project. Pittman, he's going to need some touchdowns or some things to work his way. Plus, he's battling with the injuries. That said, like, Downs, honestly, I don't know really how much more uncomfortable I would be with him if Richardson is at the quarterback this week. Like, really? I still think he's still going to have a decent role. Obviously, you get the sporadicness of the targets coming his way with A-Rich being a little bit worse. Not a little bit. He's a lot worse at the short passes. But I just feel like, for me, Josh Downs, he feels like the most reliable pass catcher in this offense. And just this week, I've swapped them now. Like, it is Downs over Pittman for me moving forward, I think.
I feel like it's a perfect time for me to, like we just talked about, you were talking about specifically Pop Douglas and how much Drake May unlocked him. And I think, to me, seeing that is a very clear indicator and kind of pivot point of the amount of upside Josh Downs has with Joe Flacco versus A-Rich to me is sizable, very sizable. Like, I'm not saying that he won't get a bunch of targets. Is he going to even be able to catch him? Are the offense going to move the same?
But I think he's a player that helps A-Rich a lot because, like, when A-Rich is out there and the only targets that he could throw are to fucking Alec Pierce down the field or Michael Pittman down the field, and you don't have a Josh Downs like just running quick, out routes and whip routes and stuff like that. I'll put this on paper. I think A-Rich starts this week. I think Josh Downs catches 7 passes, 55 yards and a touchdown, and then everyone goes he's an every week starter regardless who's quarterback going forward.
Let me ask you with that call because I don't. That's a bold take, right?
I don't feel like it's that bold.
I didn't. I was saying, are you meaning for it to be?
That's 18 fantasy points.
I agree, and I think that's where, like, the thing is 755 with a touchdown or not is a big difference in his stat line.
I'll say I think he goes north of 16.5 fantasy points. That feels relatively bold if A-Rich is under center.
I mean, if he goes 16.5, he should have been considered probably close to where like T. Higgins and Brian Thomas are.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm just saying that I think right now his upside doesn't have to rely on a touchdown.
Like,
with
to
Flacco.
me, what I'm saying is, like, on that point, for me, I'm probably debating Josh Downs where JSN is. Those two, to me, are not, like, that's not an auto start of JSN over Josh Downs for me at all, regardless of quarterback.
I would agree with that point.
Man.
But with A-Rich, I guess, let me ask you this. With A-Rich versus Flacco, how much would you move him in your rankings if you were just, like, generically?
Yeah, in this matchup, I know for sure that that's probably where Downs would be. If Joe Flacco is playing, he's in the JMO range. I probably put him at 24.
Okay, but
if A-Rich plays, I'm probably putting him around Pickens Mooney. So it's a 2 to 3 spot difference for me.
Okay, so you really aren't moving him much at all.
Yeah, okay, so this is, for me, 33, that's with A-Rich being the quarterback. I think if it's Flacco, I feel like we've done this every week, but if Flacco's there, I move the guy up.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably move him into that Smith-Schuster Mooney range where he's like 27, 28 range.
Yeah.
So he moves up 5 spots probably for me.
He feels like unsittable if Flacco is playing. But then again,
Sure.
like I said, I'm not too worried about the drop-off to A-Rich, which could look horrible in hindsight, but I think he's going to end up being A-Rich's go-to guy.
I think we're viewing the drop-off being fairly small. You moved him, I think, like, 5 spots? I moved him like 5 spots, depending on if it was A-Rich. The difference is I think you're just much higher on him
regularly.
Okay.
Yeah. No, you said like 2 or 3. You said 5. I'm probably legitimately about 10 spots. Like up with Flacco. I feel like there's that much more upside to be had in an offense that's going to pass a lot more. And Flacco, the thing about it, it's weird. He only had 189 yards last week, but this is a guy I watched all last year. Now, unfortunately, I'm not watching this year as a Browns fan. Like he has these big pop week games too, where sometimes the offense looks stale and then he has a massive quarter or two.
325 passing yards for the week or whatever.
Yeah,
I get it.
All right, let's finish out this. Christian Kirk at 34, Xavier Worthy at 35, Jalen Waddle at 36, Ladd 37, Wandell at 38, Cooper at 39. Oh, you got Tank so low.
I don't think that's accurate again. That literally is the ranking from last week too. That's crazy.
So
50. I don't think that. I need to look at that. That should not be right.
Let's talk about, because Cooper, obviously, he's not going to be at 39 if he plays. I didn't rank him because I don't believe he's playing. So, obviously, if he plays, he's a player that, honestly, I would put, I think where you have him at 26 is fine. I would probably even move him ahead of guys like BTJ. Like, I would have him probably in that.
Really?
I was going to say, wow.
I'm a little bit nervous about the first game. Tennessee's a tough matchup. I don't know that I would go that high.
I'd probably throw him up there, but then Dell, I have him at 27. I think last week, obviously, we said no Nico Collins. Tank Dell is going to be relied upon. He needs to work downfield a little bit more. He had a touchdown in this one. Mm-hmm. I think that's more of what we can expect from Tank Dell moving forward. The matchup with Green Bay should be good. Jair Alexander should cover Stephon Diggs for the majority of the day. I just think Dell, until Nico Collins is back in the lineup, we're back, baby. We might be back into where we can keep playing him as a low-end wide receiver 2 flex play every week.
100%. I really don't know why that's so low, but I honestly am looking at it right now. I think I have him at like 23. I need to go look and see where I have. I'm pretty sure it's he's near a top 20 option for me. The confidence I have in Tank Dell we talked about last week, I need to see from him something this week to feel like that spark is back, and I got that plus.
Yeah. He's a wide receiver 2 for me, for sure.
Diggs still look good, but there was a part of me that's like, man, Tank, for as long as Nico's going to be out, might be set to explode as every week being the wide receiver 1 for the offense.
Yeah, I really like this matchup too between them and Green Bay. I feel like it could be some fireworks there for sure. So
absolutely, and they put out a ton of points that week. Like with Nico out of the lineup, seeing them score over 40 was about as good as thing as you could have too.
Right.
Stroud and Jordan Love are going to throw for
them two are just like the most fun young quarterbacks.
This is must-watch football.
It's actually absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we rip off the video, we dive into some deep cuts, some dudes ranked outside of the top 40 that should be in your lineup, or you can give them a look if you are hurting through the bye weeks, if you're hurting through injuries like most of the fucking wide receivers out here are hurting. These are some dudes that, we'd suggest going after. You can throw into your PPR lineups. I'll throw my first one, Xavier Legette. He's a wide receiver 44. It's kind of low-hanging fruit. He's probably owned in a lot of places. Obviously, the matchup versus Washington is great. I think Dalton has a bounce-back game just in general because Washington's going to throw up a ton of points, and Legette's probably going to be a factor in the passing game. He scored a touchdown in 2 out of 3 weeks. But I think a deeper cut, again, like Jordan Whittington's a guy that I would go back to. He's the wide receiver 59 in rankings right now. Regardless of whether or not Cooper Kupp plays, it's a good matchup. I think it's 50-50 whether or not he plays. I think Whittington is a staple in this offense going forward if one of Kupp or their names are so like obnoxiously similar that it's so hard to say them.
Just blended them together. That was crazy.
Cooper Kupp, Nakua. If one of them plays, then I feel good about Whittington as like a wide receiver 3 in PPR league. So I like Leggett. I like Whittington.
Okay. I'm in your idiot league mates, so you can put no cap on this. I'm putting Ray McLeod in my flex this week unless I'm able to get some of the terrible options on the waiver wire this week in the bidding. But honestly, our league has never had guys that I'm looking to get every week when I go. It's like they're already gone from 2 weeks ago.
Ray's a sneaky good pick. He's been good for the Falcons, man.
He's coming off of a down week 2 with targets, only had 3 targets. But when this offense looks its best, I still believe it's with Kirk Cousins chunking.
It runs through Ray. When this offense looks its best.
That's when his boom week is this week, and it's going to look its best. Mm-hmm. But when Kirk 18, that ugly number, throwing 50+ times, and there's 500 yards versus Tampa. Like
Kirk be looking good this year, bro.
Ray might get.
Kirk's always looked good, man.
If Kirk can throw for 400 yards, what if Ray can't get 100?
Has Ray ever went for 100?
I'm saying obviously that's like me being a little bit ridiculous, but I wouldn't be surprised. I think he had one game of 70, 80. I think he has that in a touchdown in his range of outcomes, honestly.
I think he has like a pretty solid floor for this game. Yeah. I wouldn't hate throwing him in a PPR lineup for sure.
He's like, I think he was at wide receiver 60 consensus. I feel like that's probably a little bit low for a guy playing as offense he is.
All right, listen here, bub. If you want to get nasty, you want to get desperate, you're really looking to do something freaky.
I don't think anybody wants to get desperate, but we might get nasty.
If you're looking to do something freaky this week, you can go Bub Means for the New Orleans Saints. Mm-hmm. Now, look, there's a little bit that goes into this. It's a whole algorithm and equation that goes into it. I know on paper, they played the Denver Broncos on Thursday Night Football. On paper, that's a tough matchup. Pat Surtain had a concussion last week.
He's going to be out, yeah.
He's going to be out. Once he was out of that game, they gave up 20 points right away. So he is a big part of the defense. Obviously, Chris Olave, we talked about that on this episode already. He's going to be out of this game as well. Rashid Shaheed also dealing with
an update. Injury. We just had like one weird vibe report out of nowhere that was like concerning knee injury, but I haven't seen shit since.
I've saw that he didn't practice, and so they could be without their top pass catchers, both of them, in this matchup. Now, what that might mean is you just get the Taysom Hill mania, but also Bub Means working with the second team with Spencer Rattler all summer long. There's a chance that he goes out and he's their number 1 wide receiver this week. And in a PPR format where you can get a couple catches out of him, maybe an end zone catch like he got last week, there's definitely a lot of risk in a guy like Bub Means, especially playing him on Thursday night. But we're looking at deep cuts. It don't get deeper. It don't get nastier. It don't get freakier than Bub Means.
I like Bub a lot. Big dude, really athletic. Had a good game last week, so it's a good call. And I think I'm looking at the injury reports right now. Obviously, DMPs from Shaheed and Olave in both Monday and Tuesday.
Also, I don't know if I said it. He's wide receiver 67, so you should get him off waivers.
He's someone that you can easily – I highlighted him in the waiver wire video yesterday as someone who's like really, really under the radar, and the chemistry with Rattler's good.
I mean, and I would imagine in his own percentage of the guys we just mentioned is far, far lower.
It's probably like 1% right now.
Yeah, he's a guy that you could for sure go pick up off the waivers. All right, we'll wrap up there. Those are the top 40 wide receivers for Week 7 of fantasy football. Again, if you just want all of our rankings, all the positions, flex, etc., go cop that at bdge.co. Become a Big Dog member. You could do that via Underdog Fantasy. If you download the app, deposit $10 or more with promo code BDGE. That'll get you access for the entirety of the year. Otherwise, you could just subscribe to the channel and watch these videos. Each week, we will be coming out with the running back version of this video in a few hours. So come back, tap in, and we'll see you then.
All right.